Oh, okay, we're at 53, and we've never done a hard day's work in your life, so she lets him in the taxi cab. And I had a very interesting discussion about the shot that is about to come up. Now, stop a second. We're at 53, and you see on the corner, angle on angle, we're looking down on a street corner, and you see the traffic going in both directions and two lanes of traffic, and you cut in close and there's two lanes of traffic, and you cut to the statue and it's 54 and you're over the statue on the street, and it's alternating two lanes of traffic, cars going in two different directions, and the two taxis come up. Now stop it please at 54 when you see the yellow cab. The cars that you're seeing on the street and the extras that are walking all belong to the movie, are all following the director's instructions through me, the assistant director. And the way we do this is lock up the street on both sides so that this becomes a parking lot. We buy 20 cars with 20 drivers. We have 10 of them going north to south and 10 of them going south to north so that the cars can cross. Now, play forward and watch what happens. As the taxi meets, there's close on Lewis. We're playing now, close on Eddie, close on Danny. Eddie sees Danny. Denham says, "Who you looking at?" Eddie explains, "It's the guy who took my stuff." "To whom are you referring, sir?" "Right there." Okay, now notice the cars, and now stop it at 54. Danny looks up and sees Eddie. Now he has to see him, and the angle, the sight line, has to lend itself to this shot that you're looking at right here. Two eyes, jaw dropped, mouth hanging open, shot of recognition. It's a revelation, a moment of discovery for the actor, a story turning point, okay? It's not thematic bullshit, it's the mechanics of storytelling. In order to do it, you needed the cars to stop at the direction that you wanted them to stop to be able to line up to look like this. In order to do that, you had to have possession of the street. If you have possession of the street, you have to have possession of the cars on that street. It all makes sense if you stop and think about it. And the reason I'm going to the great depth that I am is to explain the realities of life. I had a New York production manager, a famous Irish guy. I won't bother to say his name, and a lot of people know his name. And he was adamant that we needn't bring, quote, Hollywood, quote, sneer methods to a simple street shot of two actors looking at each other. No, it's not a simple street shot. You have to line up so that you can end up having them look and position the cars in relation to each other when the traffic stops so that you get precisely the angle that you want. You've got 5 degrees of latitude, maybe. So, yeah, you can cheat it, but you don't have to. You got to lock up the street anyway. It was a very interesting argument to have at no good purpose because, as you can see, now I'm going to play forward. It worked perfectly, and the only reasonable way to make sense. Now they're yelling at each other. Now they're looking back. Angles are important. You're controlling the traffic. Camera's in the middle of the street. You're not dying. And that shot's over. And now Eddie's getting out at 54. He's getting out of a parked limousine. And we can, cut. Okay. Now, and we're rolling, and we're at 102. And it's a little embarrassing because not all of this is going to be useful. I would point out one thing. The monitor image is rock steady, and I was one of the few guys doing this back in the day. In addition to being an assistant director, I was using computers in movies, but we were before the box that Panavision had was rented. We were inventing it. You can see it running in the background here. And they get out and they're having their beef, and he walks away, and he finds the money on the floor, and we're at 103, picks up the money and realizes it's a bait. So he figures And this is what I wanted you to see. You pan down, and the door is open, and they're sitting in the elevator, and we're stopping at 103. Now everybody's laughing. We put that bench in the elevator, and we put the flowers and the table in the side, the corner of the elevator, just to make it as fancy as humanly possible. Okay, and that's a payoff because we mentioned it, established it earlier in the earlier elevator scene. That's how you make continuity in movies. You keep the props every time you shoot it. Okay, now we're at 103, and they're talking about giving the money back, and we're talking here for a second. What are we going to next? Oh, that bounce. The money that bounced around when he says, "Nice try, Mortar." I'm stopping at 103 at the bar, 4-shot of the idiots in the V-neck sweaters. Just stop there for a second. Back when Don Amici caught the money, when Ralph Bellamy threw him the money, and the bait to Eddie Murphy failed, and Ralph threw Don Amici the money and said, "Nice try, Mortimer." In the rehearsals, Don, who was very good with his hands, had caught it successfully in the few rehearsals we had. So now we shot it, and he caught it, but he caught it after missing it on the first hand, bouncing it, missing it on the second hand, and bouncing it, and catching it in the third hand like it was a magic trick, and he was a juggler. And because he was smooth, instead of breaking character or screwing up the shot in some way that an amateur would, he then drove forward like that was his intent all the way through and walked off. And as we said cut, the whole crew is breaking up, laughing and applauding because it was such a miraculous recovery of a fumbled prop, and the actor just blew right through it and worked it perfectly. And most people wouldn't notice it unless a fair use production like ours came along to point it out and provide an added commentary and further benefit the knowledge of the general public in the manufacture of a product of interest such as the cinema. Thank you. Holding it 103 while I take a breath and smoke marijuana to prove that Jeff Sessions is a scumbag.
Wow, working actors at 75 and 79 respectively. That's amazing. Cutting.
106, we're at the pawn shop, and we're over Lewis onto the pawnbroker with that interesting hat. That is Bo Diddley, and the man is a rock and roll legend for a very good reason. He's a wonderful singer and guitar player, and I recommend that you pay attention to the fact that that's exactly who that is. Especially the trick sunglasses are probably worth $300. All right, moving on from 106. What are we going to next?
We're going to talk about the car. It's a little before this, but do you want to roll up the scene?
The car.
Remember the meeting, they see each other in cars.
Oh, yes, okay, fine. Now, and you're saying it's back. Mm-hmm. Okay, help me remember where it is.
Before
so.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right before Jamie Lee Curtis. You mean this Jamie Lee Curtis? Okay, so we're at 1 hour and 7 minutes, and we're inside the the fancy dinner club. There's 10 people sitting around. The bearded guy is talking, and it's raining outside the window, which will be important in a minute. And we had the extras all respond to look and listen at a precise moment, and there was a commercial running, some of you may remember, some not, where the gag was when E.F. Hutton talked, everyone listened, and they had all the extras turn and listen in the room. So we said we were staging this, and we told the extras this will be an E.F. Hutton moment. Now if I play it at 107... he tells, there's Danny looking. Let's talk about that a minute. Stopping a close-up on Danny looking through the window. At 107, the rainwater is hitting him, and we're probably sending the water from a boiler, which is a simple thing to add to it. So you go fire hydrant to a hot water boiler, and you send the same kind of bath water temperature that you'd send to your house into the sprinkler that you stick up in the air and make rain. And that's what we're sending on Danny. And you can see it, and that's probably because it's backlit. They used to talk about adding milk to it, but I've never seen that happen. But anyway, if you backlight it, you can see it, the rain. Now you're shooting through the window, and now here's... I'm waiting for the E.F. Hutton moment. Oh, the escargot joke. I shouldn't be in the movie. I don't know what the purpose is. So there's Danny getting wet. And he's looking.
How cold was it outside at the moment?
I don't remember. There's the E.F. Hutton moment. So stopping at 108 with the people being brought in, and the bearded guy asks, I'm going long April wheat, what do you think? And the whole room stops, and I told the extras, this is like an E.F. Hutton commercial when I tell you, and I called out, and they all stopped to get the shot we just looked at, which is the E.F. Hutton moment. Okay, that's Jim Belushi. We are at 128. Jim Belushi putting on the gorilla hat next to the lady in the orange dress. And now what's coming up is Senator Al Franken before he was a senator. He's the second guy on the bus, on the back, wanting to know when he can drive. And it's really interesting because I always found him to be a very nice man and a very smart guy. So that was the senator, and now we're moving on from 128, and we're moving on into 128, 129. Interior, the train station. This was a set. And the primary reason for it was to make lighting easier and to allow room to position the camera. When you have something as small as that, which you need because you're duplicating existing geometry, it's very hard to put a camera and lights in there. So what you do is you build it. And I've had arguments with production managers where they didn't want to build because I'm stopping at 130. They didn't want to build because they thought that it would cost too much money, and depending on the guy and his lack of integrity, he would string me along and let me believe he was going to build a set, and then in the day I would find out that I had to stick the company into a small trailer. There's been some embarrassing, but that's a different movie. Anyway, this thing at 130. Let me drink coffee for a second. This thing at 130, close up on Eddie and the African outfit, shows you that it's a really small room. If you put 6 people in there, they'd be touching knee to knee, which is great for the look, but the wall that you see behind Eddie with the window, that's what's called a wild wall. And what it means is it pulls out, so in the reverse angle, where you're looking in the other direction and seeing the door, you're doing it because this wall that you can see in the shot on Eddie right now when he's seated, the wall isn't there. The wall with the window is gone, and you put the camera lens where the window used to be, looking back over Eddie's left ear and shoulder, back towards the door. That's how you make a small room like this work. You build it and then wild everything out so all the walls fly away, all the furniture flies away. Depending on how much moving you're going to do and how often you're in there, you could even put stuff on rollers so it just moves like air hockey pucks. All right, moving forward on 130. Now here comes the preacher sitting down. Notice how good Denham is playing another part. Really wonderful. Effortless, playing an Irish drunken priest with the funny hat. Without peer. I mean, this is the kind of character actor that makes movies work and you don't even realize he's there. Not to say that Eddie's not brilliant, but Eddie had the resources he had. He certainly didn't have the professionalism that Denham did. Now, this guy, stop it a second when the gorilla leans out at 1:30. Why does it still say 1:30? The gorilla leaning out the train with the balloons hanging. I don't remember this. I deduced this from my life experience. Was not the gorilla imitator that was Jim Belushi, and it wasn't a gorilla imitator who was a good gorilla imitator. There are guys who do that. The guy who's playing the gorilla imitator that's having relations with Beaks in the gorilla suit is a good gorilla imitator. This is a stuntman in a gorilla suit, and he's hanging on with his hand and standing with his feet, but he's also probably wearing a wire that you can't see but is controlled. So if he somehow had a spastic attack and lost control of his left hand, he couldn't fall out of the train and die. So that's what this shot is. Now going forward on 1:30, the train's moving. He's cheering.
Wow.
And there's the reverse angle on his back, flying away. This is already an older movie when you stay longer on that. Now here comes Jamie looking fantastic. It's funny that she can act and look as good as she looked then. Okay, so we're moving on. What am I moving on to? What am I looking for? Oh, here's more of them coming in. The boys
a little
come.
foreshadowing Coming to America. That character that he's playing is like almost like the Arsenio Hall.
That's
character.
right. I forgot about that.
You know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I forgot about that. Let me back up a second there. I wanted to mention that. There we go. Here we go. So after Inga hangs into Beaks, we cut into the baggage area, and you see the two baggage handlers who, this is after the switch of the luggage, of course. The two baggage handlers are Senator Al Franken and his comic partner Tom Davis, a few years before he was senator. And we talked on that again. So now, what are we going to next? I'm at 1:33.
Rip your eyes out and
Oh,
spit on your brains or something like that.
yeah. Who said that to who?
After the briefcase swap, we're just there.
Yeah. So,
Talking.
oh, look at that. They stopped perfectly at exactly the right spot. Isn't that amazing? Oh. Okay, let's try this again. Let's pick up actual audio. Delete everything I just did after the train goes, and Danny is wearing blackface. This is at 1:33. This is another reason why this movie is unlikely to be played on television. Danny Aykroyd is wearing blackface. He would protest. But in 1983, this was not thought to be an illegitimate gag. So now here comes a second briefcase we don't really understand, and Beaks sees it, and I've already lost track of which briefcase is married to which secret aunt. But anyhow, he sits down. And this is what. Now, we just had an interesting line at 1:34, again quoting the movie, Cover Your Children's Ears. I'll rip out your eyes and piss on your brain. brain. Now, there's been a discussion that took place prior to this because we weren't sure what he was going to say. So Eddie, who grew up playing sounders, where you play insults, your mom is so fat, you better be going down if she gets in the elevator with you, that kind of stuff, he was really good at. And so he figured out what to say. And it took 5 or 10 minutes while we were lighting, and he was standing in the corner, and we were all talking dirty and trying to think of what to say. And then he comes up with this line, worked it. Comedy is hard. And he came up with a great line.
This one's empty. Hey, I'll rip out your eyes and piss on your brain.
I'll rip out your eyes and piss on your brain. You can't ask for a better line than that. Anyhow, that was 134. So this is an insert for 1 hour and 40. The black limousine that Eddie pulls up in with Danny to go through the walk and talk, where I was talking about the extras. I want to add something people find colorful about the behind the scenes. Eddie does not like the cold. He certainly didn't like it then. So while we were waiting for him to do his part in the walk and talk, he stayed in that limousine watching porno on the videotape player in the machine with the hot air on, so that he stayed literally as close as you see. We owned the curb, so that's where he stayed. And we needed him. We'd knock on the door, and he'd get out of the car and bitch and complain, and come out and do the rehearse or the shoot of the walk in the tunnel of the wind tunnel. I have somehow created laughter here. I didn't mean to. This isn't Eddie. This is the two guys coming out. Here comes Eddie out of the taxi cab. And just look at their hair. Look how the wind blows when you see them. When I say it's a Venturi, you can see it in Danny's hair. It's not blowing that much. Now look at it. I mean, it, and the extras didn't want to be there, and they didn't want to screw around waiting for me to figure out how to set them. So it took some knowledge how to put 100 people out there in a minute and a half without a rehearsal and get them all facing the right way.
How long did you have in this location at the World Trade Center?
I had at least the whole day. Probably wasn't expecting to be there the whole day, but it was so windy and so uncomfortable. You just wanted to get the hell out of there. I would say, given how much, it was like a bad poker hand. You were in it for so much money, you wanted to make sure you squoze every nickel out of it you could, so you did a couple, 3 takes. I don't think we flopped sides to get the other angle, so we didn't have something to cut to. All we could do was, I can't even remember.
Walk and talk.
Yeah, but they were together, so we couldn't cut from one to the other. It just, I don't know how we'd cut around it, but the idea was to use it all in one because we didn't do it a second time. Anyhow, that was that. Should we cut this? What do you? So we're at 139 on the videotape, and we're in the train station in Philadelphia. And so in all these locations, you need to talk to the guy and tell him that you're going to kiss his ring and ask his permission to be in his domain for your little silly little movie, that one day of which has cost more than his operating cost for a year. So we come in there, and this guy flat out lies to me that we have to be out by 3 p.m. Lies to me.
What was the location?
It's this Philadelphia train station. Okay. So we had made basically a day that we should have been out at 5 o'clock because I wasn't a moron. I was going to get out before there was the 9 to 5ers went home. But 3 o'clock, we lost 2 hours out of the day. which we had to find through clever, fast thinking, and we managed to run through it quickly. And John and I worked our ass off, and we got it done. And then it turns out that this guy had told me there was a load of trains came into the station at 3:05, and we had a location guy stay behind, and no trains came in until 5 o'clock. So the guy,
Wow, outright lie.
so outright lie, and that's people want to go home and say how they screwed over the movie business. Okay, so we're gonna watch some, and then I'm gonna make some comments about what.
Rolling.
So they're going down the escalator, and they're waving. That's my extras in there. I think we're going to cut this part out because it's boring. There go their heads. She's 25, he's 55. This is second unit or stock footage.
And that was Jamie Lee Curtis and Denholm Elliott, right?
Yes, now here come the Twin Towers. Now what's interesting about this is it was colder than bejesus this night.
Wow, look at that. The World Trade Center. You guys actually shot at the World Trade Center?
Yes, we shot. This is a limousine that we used for Eddie Murphy staying warm. Those are all my extras in the shot behind us as the Duke brothers are getting out and they're crossing the street. And if you look carefully, it's a mean, cold night. There's Eddie getting out of the taxi, and now those are my extras going by in the background.
I love this walk and talk with Danny Aykroyd. He's right on.
Now look at the woman's hair behind Danny, and you see how the wind is blowing. I've stopped here for a reason. I've stopped the video for a reason. It was a very cold day, and the extras didn't want to be out there any longer than they had to, and we had to set the background to support this walk and talk, and we had to do it quickly because it was colder than a word I can't use on family television. So my second, whose job it is, started doing it and was taking too long and was uncomfortable in the cold, and I said, even though I'm the first, would you like me to do this for you? I have a way of doing it quickly. And she said, oh, I'd love that. And so I took the extras and put half of them facing one direction in one line and the other half facing 90 degrees in the other direction, and then spaced it out by walking the group forward and tapping people on the shoulder when to stop. And now I've got the group evenly spaced out, and I rotate half of them face one way and half the other way. And now when everybody walks, they just start walking, and those become the starting positions. And that's how the background gets set in a scene like this. Now we'll pick it up again and watch. They're walking. They walk past the lady with the dark hair and all those.
And this is actually the first time Eddie Murphy's character is trading on a live trading floor. So Dan Aykroyd is sort of the pro, and he's explaining to him, go for the throat and buy low, sell high, that kind of thing.
Okay, so that was that sequence. Now I got to look at the next one to understand what this is. So that was the end, and we ended at 141. I'm stopping the. Okay, so now we're picking it up at 141, and they're young traders about to take orders from the Duke and get up and walk into the crowd. And the important thing to notice here is that the crowd of traders are actually dressed like, look like, act like, and sound like real traders, but they're working with and around Danny, and in some shots you can see there's quite a number of them. And
now, how did you set that up? You mentioned that you were shot the real traders during the week, and then your traders to match them on the weekends and at night?
We couldn't shoot the real traders because they're really shooting, so really trading, so we could shoot the Duke brothers looking over their shoulder down at the traders, but not really have the trading live on the floor. So we got the shot set up before 3 o'clock, and then when the trading stopped and we couldn't alter any financial activity, we opened the window and the Dukes looked out. We relit it and put the real Dukes in and took the stand-ins out and shot the shot. With a floor, you couldn't see whether it was live or not. And then we came around on the side of the Dukes and shot them when the floor was dead, but you couldn't tell because you couldn't see that much of the floor. That commentary belongs in another part. This, the note is, when this kid gets up and walks out, when this kid gets up and walks out, he will walk into a crowd of extras that are all ours for real. Here comes the playback, and he gets the hint that there's a crooked proposition going on. Let us worry about that. Oh, you're thieves. I'll deal with that. I like that. Okay, this is some silly bathroom nonsense.
Which is a comment on the traders that, popping pills and drinking bottles of Jack Daniels in the restroom and all the drugs they did in the 80s.
Maybe there'll be a reason to keep this in here. I think it's boring, but that part is interesting. When you see that flood of extras going through, that's not easy to do.
The top-down shot, yeah.
Looking from the roof.
So we've got Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, walking calmly into the trading floor, completely determined, focused.
And those extras on the trading floor that they walk into are mine. Then the next shot is not real trading, it's floor action, a stock shot.
But it all matches.
Yep, that's what we do. We make stuff match. We get the right wardrobe and right actions. A lot of these shots you can take of people doing the actual work of trading. It's only when you bring the actors in that you have to have extras you can control. You obviously can't control real trading or you'd be manipulating the price.
Yeah, it really matches well.
There's our stuff again. Because you've got the actors in, you can tell those extras are ours. There's an actor, so he's got extras around him. Now, these are small number of extras, these shots, but you'll see in later parts of this sequence, there's some very wide angles that have at least 150 extras in them. This isn't over when the market had just closed and we couldn't affect them even if people were looking at us. Now we're back to us making the movie.
Which is 10 seconds
okay,
before
all
9
those
o'clock.
extras are ours. Actually, some of the shots intercut with actual stock shots of real trading. This is one where the floor is closed and you're on the shot of the Duke brothers. The shot lasts less time than it takes me to describe it.
So we've got other traders, other floor traders jumping in.
Now, if you stop it at 145 after he says sell it at 142 by coincidence, you see a wide shot that shows, quickly there's 100 and 150 people in that shot, and they're all leaping up and pointing in the same direction. And that's the Hollywood version of the pits and what really happens.
But that looks real. That could easily be a real pit back in the day.
And the reason it looks real is all of those people actually were people who work on the floor in non-trading capacities, but work around the traders. The floor clerks, the phone clerks, the runners.
Really? Is that who you hired as extras? So they're basically, they know all the moves, they know how to hold the phones, they know how to throw their hands up in the air?
That's why we got them, because they'd seen,
Wow.
and they'd seen this for quite some time, and nothing they could do here would be wrong or incorrect or illegal because it was Saturday and the place was closed. And once they got a clear picture of what it was we wanted, all they wanted to do was to cooperate and be great in the movie and be able to say 20 years from now, look, kid, that's me when I had hair, which is something I say often. All right, here we go again. Rolling.
We're at 146. 1 hour, 46 minutes into the movie.
The Duke brothers realize something's wrong. It's going in the wrong direction.
We're down 10 points from 142 to 132 and dropping. I believe they were trading the April wheat contract, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Now, in that angle, you can see the floor is dead, but we were allowed to open the door and shoot that way, and you
I
only
never noticed.
no one ever does, especially when you're intercutting with stuff like this. We got to get a mic stand. Okay, now there's a big wide shot, and now he's going through a smaller group of people, but you can see we have to have control of this because otherwise they'd say get the F out of our way. And there's no way you could make a shot like that with Danny in the middle in the real pits. So,
Sure, it has to be players, right? Day
yes, extras actually.
Extras.
If you have more than 15 of them speaking and it's unrecognizable or it's called omnis, then you don't have to pay them as actors. You can pay them as extras and they can speak.
Wow. So here comes the agricultural report. Everyone's listening.
And again, notice at 146, they all lean in as a large group and they listen very carefully. It's, again, behavior that you amplify by synchronizing it so that you get a laugh out of it. Okay, we're at 146 and we're rolling and they're all looking and listening for what the results are. The guy's reading the fictitious report because this isn't the way the number happens, obviously. And they discover what the information is, which Eddie knows because he was the guy with the cigar in the underground garage, handing them the wrong information.
In shadow.
And now again at 147, you cut back, you see the wide shot when they find out it's not going to affect the harvest, and everybody goes nuts and they start cheering.
Meaning the price would go back down, right? Because if it
Wouldn't-
affected the
that's
harvest,
right.
then
That-
the price of the future would go higher because you wouldn't have.
Yes.
It would be so scarce you wouldn't have, what is this, orange juice, whatever they're trading,
Yes.
wheat. So if it's cold and you get a long winter,
This is the part that'll be cut, folks, because nobody actually cared about what the real trading finance was.
well, remember today's millennials are all trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and cryptocurrencies. You and I. have heard of.
I got some land in Florida that's only a little bit underwater. Come and talk to me anytime you like. Okay, wait a second. I would like to have a drink of water here because I'm getting dry.
There you go. We're still rolling.
We're still rolling. I guess this is Joe Rogan's operation.
Joe Rogan was the inspiration for this. It's just two guys talking, and me being from the finance and prior video game industry, and David being from the movie and television industry as a Directors Guild of America
That's
member.
Mr. Green. That's enough. We don't talk about him anymore. All right, so we're at 147. Look how big the shot is. There must be 150 people in their shot, and they all look like they're real. So let's go forward now. Am I rolling? Yes, I am.
Rolling.
You're recording me, and
47.
147, the Duke brothers look at each other. They're shocked, and the Duke brothers try to get back in. Of course, those are our extras.
It all matches great.
Now you're back. That was a stock shot when she was punching the ticker. Those are stock shots, or shots we made at second unit.
The close-ups of them stamping the ticker.
Now he switches to the buy. They go crazy. People
The market's bottomed.
are yelling and hollering. And Eddie is making a comic moment out of everything. He's like Denham Elliott, only the difference is his turns to stardom. Denham Elliott's is the same without the voice. Eddie is wonderful in this.
He's amazing.
So the trader goes down, and these guys talk to him.
And that's Randolph and Mortimer.
Mortimer Duke. And all of a sudden they've lost. Their position is frozen. The market is closed. Trading is over. And this last little bit I actually saw in our research at the Chicago Board of Trade, not related to these guys at all, the trading bell would ring and they'd still have closing action.
So now the price has gone from $142 to $29.
And they're screaming and they're very happy. And the Duke brothers drop their cookies, exchange the dollar. These are slate points because this won't be used. The boys walk off. Now they do the margin call. This actor is a famous TV commercial actor holding up a can of peanut butter.
Are these guys supposed to be the Koch brothers or like some famous investment brothers or something like that?
They were just fictitious racists of great wealth.
Oh, I see.
That fits the Koch brothers, but there's probably some lesser known brothers. That man must be 82 years old and he's doing a killer performance like that. Turn those machines back on.
But the market's closed. No.
Don Amici was just the best.
Randolph's being wheeled out on a gurney, and don't they actually show up in Coming to America?
Yes, that was later, yes. This is funny, the boat with the gorilla still on it.
The security inside guy. Did you actually shoot across from the bridge there and everything?
Yes, yeah.
In New York, yeah?
Yeah, no green screen. We went out there on the docks and shot there. And this was the day I couldn't come, the beach ending.
Looks like Virgin Islands maybe, or was it somewhere in the Caribbean? You know.
Somewhere that was blue water.
Right.
That was important to John, that it had blue water.
And for the first time we see Eddie Murphy's love interest show up. And Coleman's love interest show up. See now with that wide shot from the air, that's probably shot with a helicopter, right? Now we shoot it with a drone.
Right.
And we're into the ending credits. Some bloopers, pretty funny. Was it a pretty fun experience making the movie?
I really had a good time. The actors were terrific. Everybody was a delight.
And roll the credits. Thank you, Mr. Green. That was great. And thank you, Miss Green. That was great. It's Rogue Quant 1 coming at you from somewhere in Southern California. Have a great night. Stay safe in the markets out there and be well.
Polaroid.
Wait, this is the DeBlau brothers? The gaffer?
Yeah, I'm looking at the gaffer credits, and the gaffer is John DeBlau, and the best boy is Jerry. And they were two big, heavy New York guys. And they did the electric work. And the great thing about them was they had an old black and white Polaroid still camera that they used after they lit the set, they lit the master. They would take a shot on the Polaroid in black and white where you're only looking at luminance value. You're not being distracted by the pretty green against the bright pink. And he was able to give the cameraman a lit set with the balance that he wanted. And it was a great way to work. And funny how I've never seen anybody do it since. Now, with digital cameras, you can emulate that behavior and black and white and get just luminance
Information.
immediately once you've lit the set. So everything has changed since the digital came in. I have been requested to do an outro, but I want this to go down on the record as being against protest, and I am yielding to an oppressive management that I cannot control. I am an artist who is just beleaguered and forced to push out this crap as fast as I can. So here's what I can tell you. I've done several pictures. I've been very lucky that I've had wonderful directors, and the time I spent with John Landis was some of the best, most fun that I've had. He was a terrific director. You had to be smart and know your shit, but he was a terrific director. And I spent a lot of time at Universal. That used to be my home lot. when people had home lots. Now you're lucky if you can have a home state. And it was a different business then. And I did 3 pictures with Eddie, and I did 6 pictures, 7 pictures, something like that with John. If I did Michael Jackson with John Landis 2 times, 3 times, I've lost track. The black and white, the one where he grabs his crotch, Thriller, the one that was going to go to Japan that I went to Vegas instead because Japan, I couldn't go.
And which pictures did you do with Eddie Murphy?
Coming to America, Trading Places, 48 Hours. Yeah. That's it. What else have I got? Cut, yeah.
Oh, I thought you might want to name the pictures of
I can't remember anymore.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Green. It's been a pleasure having you as always, and we'll see you next time at potentially Coming to America or maybe the Blues Brothers. What do you think?
I think there was some wonderful acting in Coming to America. I think the guy who brought the jewels to the door is probably one of the finest performances I've seen in Hollywood in years. It made me weep. Do you hear me, people? There were tears in my eyes. It was all I could do. But if you want to see it, if you want to hear a conversation, I think you have to stay tuned to this channel and follow Rogue Quant's next motion picture commentary from Mr. Green. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Be well.